Hi there. My name is Dr. Tamsin Woolley-Barker, and I'm an evolutionary biologist, an anthropologist, and the progenitor of organizational biomimicry, which I call teaming. And that's the same title as my best-selling book. Teaming describes the deep evolutionary patterns that I've observed in the field when I'm watching baboons or whales or plants in various parts of the world. Always looking for the parallels among and between different kinds of organisms and their environments and the way they live. Because each one is a mirror reflecting another version of ourselves, another possibility for making a living in this world. So obviously we're living things, one of 30 million or so dazzling and unique twigs on the tree of life, vertebrates, mammals, primates, apes. Our lives have been shaped by the same kinds of creative constraints, the same challenges in the very same ecosystems. So they're not only our relatives, but they're our co-survivors, our co-creators. What's especially interesting to me has always been the patterns of social behavior. So these are the choices that individual organisms are making every day, who they mate with, hang out with, help and share with, and how this affects gene flow and the patterns of diversity and cooperation, and ultimately speciation itself. What can we discover about our own societies ourselves by comparing and contrasting our societies with theirs? It's just pretty astonishing when you think about 4 billion years. All our ancestors managed to launch their genes into the future. Every living thing has been honed to surf on the patterns and flows of life and to grow a better future for their descendants. Life creates conditions conducive to life. And the answers are truly within our DNA, within our bones. But if you take this evolutionary approach and look at human societies, you're struck by the divergence. Why aren't we creating conditions conducive to life and future abundance for our descendants? Where do we go wrong? What's holding us back from our teeming potential? And how do we fix it? I was working with canopy companies, helping them do innovation inspired by nature, biomimicry, mostly form and function, cool product ideas. You can see that biomimicry is so powerful. You know, that Blue Planet is a company that's mimicking the coral reefs and the way that they create their own cement, and it's pretty remarkable. But what I discovered was it was very difficult for these companies to really get the full value of this innovative work because they simply were not designed to adapt to change. They were designed for efficiency. So I wrote Teeming with that in mind, and I think that's really the founding text on organizational biomimicry. But in the years since that was published, I get people asking, how do we team? How do we do it? You know, and I'm a biologist. So I'm just looking at animals, right? And so what I did was I partnered with a faculty member, Chris Lopez, at the Regenesis Institute for Regenerative Practice. And we have endeavored over this past 5 years to integrate regenerative frameworks with teaming so that people can take these concepts and apply them in a holistic, effective, applicable way. This is a map of your teaming transformation. This is my new course that will be coming out this summer to accompany the book. You guys get to take it for the first test run. So this Ubiquity micro course, Your Teaming Transformation, is going to be my first time sharing all of this in this format. This 4-session Ubiquity micro course is designed to help you grow your evolutionary thinking abilities so you can think and act more developmentally, evolutionarily, effectively, and grow existing potential in a teeming future. I'll share transformative evolutionary insights that develop leaders' evolutionary thinking and pattern to potential expertise, and the unique potential of people and place for the coming revolution in living design. Now the question is simply, what is holding us back from this teeming potential? There's 4 things, and these are going to be the 4 things that we talk about in our 4-session micro course. First thing is that we simply don't understand how life works, and it seems irrelevant to us anyway. An MBA or an economy degree doesn't require a single biology class. We just don't think it matters. Most of what we're doing in the world today is just fixing problems. You know, you fix it, contain it, manage it, landslide, floods, whatever it is that's coming at you. Just try to control it and manage it, fix it. And if you're lucky, you can even sell that fix to other people so they can contain and manage and fix their own problems. Satisfying, but it's a little bit like the boy who stuck his finger in the dike to keep it from falling apart. It's always reactionary, it's increasingly expensive, and it limits future options. And then when the inevitable collapse comes, the stakes ratchet higher and higher. And life just doesn't work that way. I love this story. Jay Harmon is an Australian surfer and inventor. And what he noticed was that waves and shells were actually spiraling all the time, and so this idea of energy going in a straight line from point A to point B, it turned out wasn't so. So what he was able to do is actually freeze a whirlpool and cast it into an impeller, which is like a reverse fan. So he did that and discovered that now, after many iterations, it's actually 85% quieter and more efficient than the fans that we had been using state of the art. What this suggests to me is that if we were to go with the flow, to design with the flows of our world, these are the kind of results that we could expect. And this is just one example, but if you think about fans taking 20% of the world's energy, there's fans in your computer and everywhere you go. We're habitually wasting between 75 and 85% of our effectiveness and potential. And that's abundance that our ancestors would have reinvested into each other, but also into their surroundings. And see pretty quickly that observing the flows of our world and aligning with them can really generate incredible returns that we're currently just leaving on the table. You can really see that we're flying blind, 3/4 blind to the potential in our world. And with all we need to do so urgently, we just can't afford to keep these blinders on. I like to call it machine mind, our blindness to the way that life actually works, our assumptions that are blinding us to reality all the time. It's a paradigm that keeps us from seeing our true potential and acting upon it. Now, paradigm is invisible. We don't even think about it, and we usually don't even see it, but it's affecting everything we do and everything we see and hear, everything that gets through. It's like this man in the chair. When your brain goes, oh, that's a man in a chair. I know what that looks like. And you draw a man in a chair. And it looks a little cartoony and silly. And you go, oh, I can't draw. And then you don't try to draw again. But if you were to turn that picture upside down and draw it, you would find that you see much better. You actually start looking at it for what it is, not what you think is there. This course is like that. It's going to help you turn the picture upside down on the way we live and our human nature. It's going to help develop your life-mind capacity so you can see clearly what's trying to become and what's in the way. And living systems are like that. They're open, adaptive, irrepressible, actually kind of hard to stop. They're driven by infinite sunlight, and they're self-healing and self-organizing. So if we can learn to think and see that way, we don't have to take on all the problems ourselves. We don't have to do all the work because life is inherently healing and self-organizing and searching for potential. So instead of trying to force or educate or incentivize all of us funky pegs into our perfect square holes that we're designing, we can restore flows to work 85% more effectively and simply enhance what it's trying to become. We just need to change the way we see, and I believe that everything else will flow from there. So rather than fixing problems, we're going to learn in this course how to dissolve them simply by aligning with systems that we're part of and growing their systemic value-adding capacity so that we can hatch into a new equilibrium. Second thing holding us back is the processes in which we live and work, our social systems. These are completely misaligned and, in fact, preventing our nature as human beings from being expressed. Why would we do that? It's because we don't understand our own nature as human beings. We don't know what kind of animal we are or trying to be. Even though we share 98% of our DNA with our cousins, the chimpanzees and bonobos, and our shared ancestor only lived 5 million years ago, which is like the blink of an eye in evolutionary time. Even though we're so close, our societies are really different. We're a lot more like ants and honeybees, like colonial creatures, than chimpanzees, even though we're prone to some chimp-like behaviors. Ants, bees, and even slime molds and mycelia underground have some of these patterns. diverse individuals do their own preferred work in their own preferred style, and they share generously. And this provides a reliable, adaptable, expanding, and open-ended set of capabilities and resources. They're obligated to do that. And there's no individual that can do everything that needs to be done. Superorganisms share deep patterns that are instructive for us. They reveal our potential and deficits that we haven't tapped into or not even seen. So I've developed this unique teaming framework for thinking into everything that we do together from this teaming perspective. It takes a village, shared purpose, helping and sharing, generosity, collective intelligence, self-organization, swarm creativity, and stigmergic communication like chess and pheromone signals, right-scaled awareness and responsiveness in a team of teams. It's a special kind of structure. It's very flexible, very powerful, and very intelligent. But we are not ants, which brings us to the third thing holding us back from our superorganism potential: chimp mind. Chimpanzees and gorillas, as you know, organize themselves through dominance hierarchies. Most primates do. It's exclusionary resource use, what we call ownership. The lowest ranking folks just try to stay out of the way. That's fine for them. That's chimpanzee life. But we are obligate superorganisms. We're required to live that way and collaborate. So it takes a lot of conscious care for a primate like us to cultivate and maintain these kinds of collaborative spaces, with all that freedom and purpose and trust that the ants and bees seem to enjoy so naturally. Our ancestors, no matter who you are, took that kind of work very seriously. They worked hard to recognize each other's special talents and styles, and to mentor and initiate community members into their rights and responsibilities, and to develop their diverse capabilities within these bounded collectives. You see this pretty much universally in all foraging people. We put a lot of effort into maintaining equality and preventing dominance, preventing bullies or hoarding, that kind of thing. It's very important that everybody shares, and it's very important that everyone contributes. They prevent dominance actively. So he's protecting these spaces in which helping and sharing add up. But you can see how that has slipped, and we don't preserve those spaces anymore. In our lives, we can be as nice as we want, but we'll be taken advantage of because there are no boundaries, there's no commons, and there's no mutual protection. We don't often experience that kind of generosity that our ancestors relied on. We're forced to compete for grades and salaries. And why would we help each other? Why would we even bother to see each other? We have little shared purpose. We just do what we're paid to do for the most part. We've got little place-sourced cultural identity because we've migrated so much or had migration done to us. We don't have the mentors and peers and elders that we once had to see and develop us as individuals. If you look at Project Drawdown, Paul Hawken lists the top 15 solutions, and most of them are technical solutions. But if you look, the most impactful solutions are actually empowering women and girls, giving them access to education and opportunity. So that's a direct reflection of dominance and imposition, and fundamentally suppressing the fabric of our superorganisms. What if we have all the answers we need and we're just being suppressed or denied or prevented? So what's going on here? Well, my own theory is that this is a traumatic parasitic human form, narcissism triggered and spread in a runaway system. Fits with what we know about superorganisms and their deep patterns, because their wealth inevitably attracts these parasites, looking to steal their food and labor. And they rely on deception and control to steal the value created by others. Typically, they gain entry by mimicking the colony's shared scent. They produce propaganda pheromones, and that makes the soldiers go in circles, go crazy. So the parasitic queen can just nip into the colony, dive right in. And what she'll do is sterilize the host queen and take over. And then all the colony starts to feed her and her offspring by mistake. So parasites don't want collective intelligence. They don't need that individuality. They just want the nutrients. They just want the host to bring them the nutrients. So any deviation from their own standards of efficiency is to be suppressed. And that's what we use our own best practices to eliminate. Parasites also don't care about the symbiotic relationships. So waste accumulates. And once the local resources are consumed, the parasites move on. And in the same way, our ancestors' commonwealths were stripped for parts. All their intergenerational knowledge collected over millennia, traditions, value, wealth, all of that severed and lost to time. The structures and the processes that people had for growing and protecting their commonwealth have been erased and suppressed, and all that value sucked out. So how are we going to restore our health? How can we restore our communities from a source or seed? Superorganisms collectively maintain and protect their equity, freedom, and shared purpose by suppressing dominance and cheating. And they do it in a continual, distributed, and self-organizing way. I call it distributed leadership. You see it in honeybees, where these supposedly sterile worker bees will occasionally start producing fertile eggs, which is considered, like cheating on the social contract. And other bees will just simply remove those rogue eggs as they go. We have to manage our lurking chip mind. There's two things we're going to talk about there: bonobo revolution, the way that bonobos suppress dominance, and prosocial, which I know a lot of you are involved in with David Sloan Wilson's group. I think you'll have some fun looking at prosocial from my own perspective. We'll call it prosocial T-style. This brings us to the final barrier to our teeming transformation, and that is that we just don't even know our role in our ecosystems anymore. We've had the permission and the connection suppressed, so those connections have eroded. We forget that we are nature. We are another animal, one of 30 million end twigs on the tree of life, and that humanity is not necessarily a force of imposition. We evolved on this planet same as everybody else. So we know that we're designed to create conditions conducive to life. We know that we do have a unique role and contribution to make in our ecosystems. And we just need to regenerate those systems and that connection. This is what I call living design. And this is going to be the fourth part of our micro course. Well, this is when you're no longer doing biomimicry of form and function or process or systems. You're just living. You're not mimicking anymore. Biomimicry. You are life, and you are designing as a living thing. You think about the bow and arrow or making fire. These are systems that open new radiations of possibility. The same way flowering plants enabled seeds and fruit and primates like us that enjoy them. I think you'll see when we put all these four pieces together and look at it from a living systems holistic point of view, evolutionary viewpoint, we'll see that if we took all that canopy, power and wealth and ownership, and we put it back into the soil and into communities, so that communities could restore themselves and living systems can restore themselves, which they're good at, we wouldn't have to do all the work. Life self-organizes, it finds a way, and it's irrepressible. And people too, they naturally do what's right for themselves. This changes, I think, how we think about all the crises of our times, climate crisis, biodiversity loss, cultural erosion, poverty, and governance. All these things we can look at through the lens of teeming. We can look at ourselves as superorganisms we are, and we can regenerate these systems. And you're going to hear about such exciting projects that we're working on in Kauai and Borrego Springs and University in Panama and other locations. Partnering with traditional people, locals who know what's required, really important work that's having a huge effect. I'm just so proud of my team and so happy to be part of what we're doing. I really believe that the teaming approach offers a profound opportunity for us to see fresh and to team together the way we're meant to be. And I hope you'll join me in this Ubiquity micro course for Your Teeming Transformation.